I'm here to tell you a bit about Pokkén tier lists and ruin my sleep schedule again. So one of the most commonly asked questions new or returning Pokkén players ask is, what's the current tier list? And some people might be like, what Pokkén players? And to answer that question, I'll say tiers are a bit finicky in Pokkén. I think I have a pretty good grasp of Pokkén. I mean, I go to a lot of tournaments and I do pretty okay at them, and I like to study and analyze the game a lot. I even play it a lot, maybe a little bit too much. I've thought about getting another hobby. So when it comes to Pokkén and looking at what characters belong in one hole, it's kinda tough to do. Here's the kicker to those not in the Pokkén mix. Pokkén Tournament does not have an official tier list and has yet to make any progress in doing so. Now, this is not due to any lack of effort from the community or anything that implies any sort of state of the Pokkén scene. It's simply really hard to get everyone to agree on one single tier list, though we have became close. And the cop-out answer that isn't actually a cop-out is, it's hard to rank the roster because the game is balanced. Play who you want. And I say this because some people are unsatisfied with that answer, but that's kind of the truth. Now, I will say this. We do have a general understanding of who's good and who's not so good in the game. Going through multiple players here in North America, Braixen, Mewtwo, and Sceptile are great, Gardevoir and Gengar are not so great, and the rest vary from player to player. There's a little bit of consistency and a few exceptions to the extremes. Keep in mind when I say people, I am not talking about scrubs who barely play the game and are extremely biased in their placements. 90% of the tier lists I've shown are from very promising players that are definitely not randoms or whatever the hell you call them in other communities. So, do we have a case where the balance gap is very large or rather small? This one I can actually give a definite answer for, although it is kinda my opinion as well. It's small. As I said before, the game's balanced. That doesn't mean the game is perfect, but we'll talk about that some other time. If hypothetically a character who's the best character is S tier, the worst character in Pokkén is A- tier, which is pretty good. And some people may be a bit more perceptive and say, the game is still only a few months old, and there's a chance you guys don't know the game as well as you think. That's a fair point, that may be true. So I'll point in the direction of those who got the game ahead of us by directly quoting Japanese Gengar god Sasahune. He writes, Japanese players don't make a tier list. We think Pokkén is a well-balanced game, and it's hard to decide who the strongest character is. And I'll take his word on it. Granted, people like Evo champion Tonosama have made their own personal tier lists, but they clearly state it's a personal tier list and that it's their opinion. So yeah, no official tier lists in ESA regions. So, that's the situation of tier lists in Pokkén, and why there isn't an official one. Hell, it's why I haven't made one myself. I sometimes wish we had one, so we can quell the tiers of new players, but then we get this chaos of people completely underrating or feeling unmotivated to play anything near the bottom, and people completely overrating and exaggerating the strengths of those at the top. In the end, we're just hurting the player base that's attempting to adjust to the scene, and we should be focusing on things that we actually should learn, like our matchups. Then how about a tier list based on matchups, which is the one I currently lean towards. But then we need to collect data from multiple players from the characters, and we need to average it up, and due to biases or just incomplete data, we get something that still doesn't look right. Like, it's actually kinda unfair to rank Gardevoir so low because of agreed bad on what if matchups. And when I say a what if situation, it's simply the ideal conditions to determine a matchup. Two players of equal skill are both playing different characters at the highest level of optimization. So why don't we just do a tier list based on results, right? Well, if you do that, you get a really controversial tier list, because people like Pikachu and Weavile get 0 results, even though a lot of people agree they're high tier or even top tier. And all you have to do is look at the ones in Japan. I could get into why Pokkén is a balanced game, and why the tier lists barely matter, but for now, let's just say, each character has enough tools at their disposal to succeed, and they are unique enough from each other so no one is overshadowed by another character's kit. If you see a Pokkén tier list, take it with a grain of salt, and at the same time, Pokkén is still a fresh game, especially in NA. We're definitely not optimized yet, but the overall skill level has been going up and up. Because of this, tier lists don't matter as much as they usually do. So yeah, maybe one day results-based tier lists will start to match up to the what-ifs, but honestly in the end, it's still gonna be a balanced game. Here's your answer to those asking for an official tier list. Play who you like and have fun.